comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Ben Slinger, and with me, as always, is Trevor Scott.
Hello.
And Trevor, I think we had a lot of fun last week doing some adventure games, some point-and-click adventure games. One of our favourite kind of styles, one of our favourite genres of game, I suppose.
We still haven't found that nugget, so we're going to go again and try to find that nugget.
Yes, we're going to continue mining the adventure game mines until we find our gold nugget adventure game that we can really sink our teeth into.
And sell for $1 million. So before we do that, I want to bring up a game idea that I'll be perfectly honest, we have talked a little bit about this.
Yep.
I sort of mentioned, a little while to you that I had this simple idea for an adventure game that we could do at this thing coming up, which was basically it's set in an alley. And,
yes.
A sort of a very green detective comes in and has to do has to question a witness and all this sort of stuff.
Sure.
And then we were sort of joking around in the car as we were coming home, and I, off the top of my head, came up with the idea that the detective is actually a work experience student and has just been thrown into investigating a murder as part of his work experience. So he's got only a short amount of time to do this, and has had no training, and
he's getting paid fuck all.
He's getting paid $5 a day.
Is that still the going rate for work experience?
Most likely.
So, yeah, okay. This is a fun idea. One of the things we do like to do with these adventure games, particularly because there is also an adventure game jam coming up, as Trevor sort of referenced, which is I think it's a 2-week jam. But either way, it's good to scope down our ideas into something that can be done in that sort of time frame. So, yes, having a single location or just one or two locations is often a benefit to that. So I like this idea of just set in the alley and having some puzzles and some dialogue and such, I guess, set up there.
Yep, and then when you can even then, once you work out who your suspect is, you can take him into an interview, into the interrogation room, and you can have this work experience kid who is obviously got a croaky voice and
yeah, very much the kid going through puberty from The Simpsons.
Yep. Hi.
So, I mean,
yeah, that could be fun.
Okay, so I like this. Let's have a bit of a think about it. Let's have a bit of a think about how it might play out, because obviously, I think this also falls well into that kind of bumbling protagonist that a lot of the comedy adventure games, often go for. The Guybrush Threepwood, your Roger Wilco,
yep,
your Leisure Suit Larry. There's always a bit of that. So I think that works well with it.
You Zach McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders, yeah.
Yeah, just someone who's kind of who's managing to stumble into success, essentially. And I don't know if that works well, just because often adventure games have ridiculous solutions to things, and so it makes sense that a bumbling fool would try that and it would happen to work. But it feels a bit like that sort of game.
Yeah. So my first thought was, okay, you have a very simple scene of the kid sort of arrives and the sergeant there, or the lead detective, sort of says,
does their mum drop him off?
It's like, oh, so young detective, I saw that your mum dropped you off at the crime scene. Straight away, it's like straight into, well, welcome to your first day of work experience. You're going to be lead on this case.
Have some dialogue options. The kid thought that he was just going to be working the front desk or like going on a ride along or something. It's like, well, that's true, but we've had a lot of resignations and dishonorable discharges recently due to the fact that all cops are bastards. So We are short on men
and
women,
short on
and
cash, and that's why we've gone to our next logical source of detectives, the local high school. So, if you'd like to put this badge on, here is your gun.
Here is your taser. Here is your nightstick. Here is your gun, and here is your semi-automatic rifle.
And here is your backup weapon. Please strap that to your ankle.
But it's a shotgun.
Yes, well, yeah. So I'm saying that you could easily, have a few jokey things off
of
the start, and you can give yourself a call sign and all this sort of stuff, and you can choose between a few different things.
Choose a call sign. Okay, that's cool. So then, how was this person murdered? What happened? We'll work backwards.
Okay, they were beheaded.
Oh God. Super gory. They were hung by their own intestines.
No, okay. We can make it a little bit more simple. We can say that they were strangled via garrote wires, a la your Hitman-esque sort of kill.
Right.
And then dumped in an alleyway with no clothes.
Okay. How serious are we making the solution to this crime, or are we going about this through very, wacky means?
I like going through serious means to offset the police department. The fact that the police department is like
just completely buffoonery.
Yeah, complete buffoonery, and you happen to, one of the witnesses has blood all over their hands or something like that, or has, a necklace made of piano wire.
Yeah, I guess the challenge then comes from how do you make sure that it's interesting for the player.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the puzzles in a game like this don't actually have to be about solving the crime. They could be about proving the crime. It's like, yeah, it could just be there's a person there who is saying they're a witness who obviously did it,
mm-hmm.
but you need to convince them to tell you where the murder weapon is, or to to get their finger, to get a sample of the blood or something. You need to solve puzzles then to do that.
Yeah,
that could actually be a fun little
But yeah, there's just something about a back alley and all that sort of stuff, and you can have a couple of witnesses off to the side. You can have a police photographer sort of taking photos every now and again, and maybe one of the puzzles is you've got to actually be able to get the photos downloaded off that thing, because they're inept in technology, and therefore there's a mini game in which you're
well, maybe you got to get the film development. Maybe they're still using film cameras.
I can't imagine that a teenager would know how to do that, whereas a teenager would know how to connect up the camera to the PC and download the photos. It's got to be something so super simple that it's you put the cable in and you hit download and all the photos come down.
Well, what about oh my God, just if the victim was beheaded,
mm-hmm.
but one of the puzzles is you have to try to use their Face ID to unlock their phone. And so you have to the head is hanging up high or something. You have to find a way to get the phone up in front of the head to unlock it.
But there is something about a grisly murder scene because of the juxtaposition between a kid should really not be in this scene whatsoever.
How does the kid react to being put in this position, do you think? Are they completely out of their mind, scared and or is this some fucking cocky little bastard who's just yep, I'm gonna do this?
I kind of like the idea of a cocky little bastard, because as a even a silent protagonist, quite often protagonists will be kind of silent, but I know.
I mean, less so in adventure games. Yeah.
My name is Guybrush Threepwood, and I'm a mighty detective. And the first time he sees a dead body, he throws up.
Just have a mechanic that anytime you walk like too close to the body, you're just constantly vomiting. Just put in some nice decal stuff. And then you turn that into a puzzle somehow.
The verb bar down the bottom goes barf and wretch.
Yeah. It changes so you've only got those verbs based on your proximity to the body. That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah.
I think there's some really fun stuff you can do with that.
I mean, I wasn't the first one to ever come up with that, because I found out the other day that Secret of Monkey Island actually did that first.
Did what first?
The changing of the verbs.
The verb. Yeah. Okay.
Because the only way that you can die in the Secret of Monkey Island is to stay underwater for 10 minutes and not solve the simple puzzle of picking up the idol. And then the verbs turn into different ways of like blob and float because you're dead, and that's all you can do. Yeah.
I don't think I'd seen that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So that's actually kind of awesome, and I'm like, I'm going to steal that.
So you're thinking there's a verb bar then?
I think a simple verb bar. I don't think
controls.
I don't think it's as...
It's not like the 9 different or 12 different verbs No.
Because, I mean, use and pull and yank or pull and pull, push and pull, they can all be sort of under the use or operate sort of verb. And
I like having
a pickup. I like pickup being separate to
use.
Operate. Yep.
Yeah. I do like having those options. I agree. Like, I think there is good reason why adventure games is simplified to a certain degree down to, look at and use almost being all you need. But I do think there's something to be said for having the verb bar there for some more subtle puzzles, like talking to something, being a solution to a puzzle, whether it's an intercom or because using it, you might not always imply that or whatever, right?
Yeah. So one of the things I've recently just played all the way through Monkey Island 1, just finished it in the last couple of days.
Yep.
I noticed that I was playing the remake, the remaster,
yes.
which you could hit what was it, F10 or whatever, and you could switch between the old and the new.
Mm-hmm.
Because the old had the verb bar down the bottom and all the inventory always on the screen.
Yep.
I just went through the whole game using that because I don't have to remember where's the inventory again. Like, there's always the verbs that I wanted down the bottom, and I could just go do, and away it went.
Yeah, there is something to be said for that, and I think in the current day of modern resolutions as well, screen resolutions, we've got the real estate.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't hurt to have...
Like, Thimbleweed Park reminded me how good it was to have a verb bar down the bottom again. And still have enough space to actually do everything else. Now, we could even make it smaller because you don't need as much. I don't think
you need the whole thing. Even if you just had 4 verb icons, you had look at, use, pick up, talk to, or something, or something like that. And then, 1 line of inventory, basically.
Or 2 lines, they don't... Again,
1 or 2.
You've got a pretty big screen, 1920 by 1080 or whatever, and you can... You can get some pretty detailed things for inventory down the bottom. It depends on how much inventory you got. If you don't think that you're going to have much, then...
if it's a Day of the Tentacle style thing where you're going to pick up, 12 things and have them all in your inventory at once, then maybe you need a bit more.
Maybe you need a bit more, but if you literally got Your gun, your gun, bullets, badge, notebook, and your CSI field kit, and your backup weapon.
Your shotgun.
Yeah, and at one stage you can pick up the head and you can put that in there and you can get like a whole heap of fingerprints. And so, yeah, I'm starting to see that we could actually really fill out that inventory bar.
Yeah, and look, there's something to be said, I think, for adventure games where there's a bit of fun to collecting inventory things, and I know that it can get tedious if you're trying to solve a puzzle and you got 10 things in your inventory and it's not obvious what you're supposed to do next. You end up like use every inventory thing on everything you can. But I mean that's more of the puzzle design not being great.
Yeah,
because I think it can be fun to just have fun little inventory items that you might only use for one puzzle.
Yeah.
Even though they've been in your inventory like the whole time. Like you might only use your gun once for some stupid gag joke or something. Or gag, joke puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's worth it for that, just for the sort of world building and the joke that it's there at all. Obviously you can, if it gives you the opportunity, if the player tries to use the gun on things in the world, that you can write funny responses to it. And I know it's a lot of work writing all the combinations of inventory, funny responses for incorrect inventory items, but I feel like that's just a big part of the charm of the classic adventure game.
The classic adventure game, exactly. So yeah, I think we could do quite a lot with that. I don't think we need to go on the full deep dive for the full hour on this. I think we can see
that's
some
fine.
other stuff. But
you did talk about, so just, we've talked about the alley and being the homicide detective. Yeah. You talked to me previously about if you were to extend it further
into a full game, you could have all 5 days of the work experience.
Week of work experience, yep.
So he's working narcotics. He's working in, maybe the firearms, not vice. That's also it's also narcotics. But yeah, just going into different. Like maybe some undercover work,
like major crimes or whatever, or
just he gets to do a patrol and then gets thrown the car keys and it's like, there you go, Junior, you can drive the car.
And then you've got a little mini game where you can only see an inch over the dashboard. I think as a full game that could be really fun, and particularly if each one of them. And this is a series we've referenced a lot before, but in a similar way to the Dark Side Detective series, where, particularly in the first game, there were very few locations per kind of case. Maybe 4 or 5. You could keep that even smaller. Like, you could have them be these little mini stories, little mini puzzles in, 1 or 2 locations. And then you do a bunch of them.
Like, one of the things that I really didn't like from the very end of Monkey Island 1 was when you got the rowboat and you're having to go between like the cannibals in the north part of the island, and then you got to go back to where the Chuck is, and you have to go between them a few times before finally, when you actually get the route at the end, they go a short hike, a quick rowboat later, and and a wander through the jungle. And it's like, you should have done that before. Now that we know where we're going between, like, it would have been good if I didn't have to keep on going back between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I think that's one of those things where, I mean, it's like in Monkey Island, it's like finding the Swordmaster as well, Not that you had to go back and forth through that a lot, but once, I think that one was done better, where it's like, this is this weird maze or whatever, and
they use that maze twice, which is pretty fantastic. Like that they actually
for the T-shirt as well, right? So
yeah, one for the treasure hunt, one for the Swordmaster. But for the Swordmaster, you had to get the shopkeeper to go
follow the shopkeeper. Yeah,
but of course, I can't remember what actually reminded or what let you know that the shopkeeper knew that where the Swordmaster was. It's just like a line of dialogue that you just had to ask.
I think you just talked to him. Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, I think that's all you need, really. You solved it. Obviously, it's hard to judge now. It's hard to go back and go, would I have solved this if this was my first time playing it and not my 10th? But
you only played it 10 times. I swear I've got more than that. God.
All right, shall we do another? Let's maybe get a random
location.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got one ready? Because I do.
No, I don't. So give me one. Let's see.
Man cave.
Man cave. All right. That's a location ripe for satire.
Mm.
Okay. So is this a...
It's an investigative game where this guy's gone missing. This guy's gone missing, and his wife has to go through the man cave and find like clues as to where he might have gone.
Oh, see, I was thinking that this is a perfect opportunity for satirical stuff on sort of the stupid sitcom idea of men, like a very Tim Allen-esque character.
It's got car stuff everywhere, wrestling. Sorry,
wrestling.
Yeah,
like beer signs.
Yep.
Yeah, and that we play with that and kind of ridicule it. The whole toxic masculinity thing a little bit, or the
scantily clad women, and very misogynistic. Oh no,
yeah.
That's just toxic masculinity. Let's maybe not do that side of it.
Well, I just mean that you'd, if you do it right, you can satirize it, right?
Yeah.
You can make this character into the villain, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose the challenge then is, how do you bring the story into that? Where does this? Who are you playing? Are you playing the wife? Are you playing a friend? Are you playing this character? You don't want to make them into a hero in that if they're awful like that. But
I kind of like the idea of playing the wife. There's something about that maybe she starts to realize, oh, who did I actually marry? What has he done for me lately? To quote.
Well, it gives me a Kevin Can Fuck Himself vibe, which is the TV show on Amazon, which plays with directly with the sitcom-y trope sides of things, including, laugh track and stuff. I don't think we go that far, but yeah, sort of seeing those very traditional. I suppose they're traditional, but seeing that side, that culture from the perspective of the wife, to whom it's just gross.
I kind of like the idea of having that juxtaposition, like what Kevin Can Fuck Himself has. You've got like the bright and shiny sort of thing when he's in the scene, and then it becomes dark and gloomy and oppressive when she's in the scene by himself. It's sort of like the luster sort of gets removed as he leaves the scene, and you can sort of see it filtering from the side, and you can actually play with that whole idea of the
I'm trying to think how that would play out.
Well, I think the whole thing's in a 2D the 2D sort of adventure gamey sort of thing, but when he leaves the room, it's almost like that aura sort of just fades from the side of the screen.
You've essentially got like a different background.
The same background, just...
No, like the same space, but now it's like gross and, the expression on the woman in the wall is not sexy. It's like, tired and frustrated.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like fully grimy or anything like that, but I don't know, maybe a little bit of grime could actually add to the oppressive nature of it, and just... There's
like socks and tissues on the floor, and there's it's essentially like the things that he glosses over, now you see them once he leaves. Yeah, that could be interesting. I feel like it's maybe hewing a bit too close to that idea, but from Kevin Can Fuck Himself. But yeah, I don't know. I think let's move on. I think that there was some that there could be an interesting game there, but it's kind of hard to dig into in this context. Okay, here's an interesting one. Customer service desk.
Ooh, okay.
So this gives a good opportunity for, again, single location, but with a lot of characters that could come through, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. There's some sort of management of the keys, making sure that you're giving the right key out to the right people and all this sort of stuff. Like,
wait, who are you giving keys? Why are you giving away keys?
I know. I pictured this was a customer service desk of a motel for some reason.
Okay,
motel or
that
hotel.
makes more sense. I think we hadn't clarified that. Now that you have, yes,
I'm
at a hotel.
like,
yeah,
it's a key party.
That's
it's a customer service desk at a key party.
It's fine. It's just you. Obviously, in your mind, you had something there, and you hadn't said it out loud, so I was confused. No, I like it being at a hotel. I think that's cool because there's again a lot you can, a lot that can happen.
Yeah,
then.
I mean, you can be taking messages for people. You can be making sure that you got the wake up call happening at the right time, and
Well, yeah, I think we want to keep it to the adventure game, so less mechanics around, regular things. I mean, I think those could happen as events in the story, for sure. And I mean, you could put some interesting mechanics in there if you wanted some time-based mechanics, not actual like elapsed time for the player, but in-game time where something's going to happen at a certain time of day, and that can be foreshadowed by so-and-so wants their wake-up call, or because then you could. I do like that idea of sort of highlighting time passing in this space, and that's the story progresses in different ways, and so it could even be we've got your manager in the morning says, well, we've got a very important celebrity coming. They're arriving at 2 p.m. when, everything needs to be ready. You need to give them the best possible service. And so shit's hitting the fan though. Up until then, it's sort of that could be a fun vibe for it all.
Yeah. And I can see that in some of these hotels and stuff like that, they've got live-in guests that, sometimes they've been living there for quite a while, so it's like there's a permanent room. Mr. Smith likes his food delivered at 5 p.m. promptly, and then maybe some crazy stuff has gone on and you didn't deliver the food, and he actually either calls up or turns up down there, and it's the first time that you've actually seen him, and he's pissed, and it's well, there's a few ways you could do it, like. The choice we would have to make here is this relatively linear in that, like, for something like that, is it predetermined that you cannot get him his food in time? Like, something happens at 4 p.m. and it essentially, the only time that time passes is when you've resolved all that, and now it's 5:15 and he's pissed and he comes down. Like, that's sort of the next beat of the story. Yeah.
Or you've almost got some branching stuff where if you solve a puzzle a certain way or you make certain choices, you can, get there in time and make him happy, or you might not, and then you have a different path. Obviously, the latter is much more difficult to write and
keep track of.
It all keep track of. Particularly if you want those choices to have any sort of effect later on. Yeah.
One thing that I'm seeing is a kid hands in a wallet right at the very start of the game saying, I found this on the pool deck. And it's like your whole thing is trying to find who owns this wallet, but you don't get the time to, every time that you sort of, go to open the wallet, then something else happens. It's sort of like...
Right, it always triggers the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And you could have it gives you the opportunity for a wacky cast of characters. There's the concierge who sort of bosses you around, and, they're the ones who are, Mr. Jones must have his food by 5 p.m., make sure you do it or whatever, it tells you early on. Because because they're the one who knows all the important guests and the live-in guests and stuff. And then, your fellow customer service people or the hotel manager. Or,
the bellhops that come by. They're a colourful group of characters.
Yeah.
They're going around.
They're all fucking teenagers or something.
Well, they're all running around. It's sort of like, I don't know, some sort of crazy adventure that they're having all on their own where...
Yeah, just trying to get the luggage up there as fast as possible. And,
they're Tetrising it all together, and it looks like they're having a whale of a time.
That's a deep cut. Back to one of our previous games from 3 years ago.
Maybe 4 years ago.
Maybe. Actually. Cool. Should we move on?
Yes. To the greenhouse.
Ooh, a greenhouse. Okay. I'm almost picturing that you're maybe some sort of woodland creature or some sort of little pixie or something.
Mm-hmm.
That it could be that you live in this greenhouse.
A magical greenhouse.
Yeah. Well, or just in a regular greenhouse and you have to deal with the humans coming in. or they've been neglecting their plants here or something. Mm-hmm. And almost like a borrower's or a, just that vibe. Because then you could have some really cool scenes where it's just, on a shelf with the potting mix and the whatever, and they've shoved a particular plant up there, and or on their workbench with their tools and the cut corpse of plants that they've trimmed, the limbs.
Letitia, no, what did they do to your wonderful petals?
Yeah, exactly. You could have it be this real. But yeah, maybe it's the actual plants themselves are the characters, and they're essentially, they're almost slaves then, which maybe goes a little bit dark, but
I like the idea of having your woodland pixie. He or she is the is your character, and they're going, but they're able to travel around to numerous places within this greenhouse, and because it turns out that in this world, every greenhouse has a pixie who helps make the helps keep the plants calm and fed well and all this sort of stuff, so that there's...
So is there some sort of governing body that sends pixies out to greenhouses as they're built, or is it when a greenhouse is built it brings a pixie into being?
Yeah, I think the first night, or the first full moon, a pixie is...
The first full moon after a greenhouse is built.
Yes.
A pixie will be brought into the world to care for the creatures within.
And you just see the moonlight shining down on this greenhouse. And this pixie sort of just gets, assembled from all these bits of...
vines and leaves.
Leaves and dust. And it's
Yeah.
Takes his first breath.
Their first breath.
Or their first breath. And I know, I think then, you've got some stuff that the character doesn't know. Because I think you just play it out from...
that's literally the opening of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's stuff that's gone on in this past up to 30 days, up to 28 days. Yeah. You don't know how long it's been there for, but these plants are somewhat traumatized maybe and don't necessarily trust you, and it's over the next couple of nights that they actually trust you. And
okay, this is interesting. So I'm just trying to think now, what are the sorts of puzzles that would be in a game like this? Are you trying to solve the plant problems? You come across the sunflower wilting in a corner.
I can see plants having, being planted in the wrong section because they're not getting enough sun, or they're getting too much sun, getting
that's what
not
I mean.
enough water.
But you'd want to make, like, I think maybe the first one or two you come across, like the first puzzle to solve is a plant that's been put aside and isn't getting any sun.
Yeah.
Right? And so you either have to, if it's been literally planted in some sort of planter or something, you have to maybe find a way to, like, dig it up and put it in something and move it and replant it.
Or move
and have a series of puzzles like that.
Or move it so the human realizes, oh, that's what I was going to do with this one. I was going to plant it,
right,
in this section or something like that.
But then I think you want then to have puzzles where it's like, oh, these two plants are looking at each other from across the greenhouse and they're flirting from a distance, but, they have no ability to get close to each other, so you have to you have to find a way to, you have to convince the grumpy old fucking mushroom or something that's living nearby to let you plant the other plant there.
Well, you go through that whole thing and then you realize that you don't have the strength to move either of them around anywhere, when really all you had to do was get a couple of tin cans and some string and they can talk to each other.
Set up communication systems and things. And then is there an overarching storyline then that you're...
Yeah, I think what actually happens is over this first... Normally it's over your first month that someone comes in from the Pixie Oversight Committee and they make sure that you're taught everything right. But they didn't come in and they're... to give you the training that they'd normally have done. Instead, they're sending out the final evaluator, and that determines whether you
just get popped out of existence the same way you're popped into existence.
I'm thinking this is more around the entire greenhouse gets completely obliterated.
So the human that built this greenhouse, just comes the next day and finds the greenhouse
everything
gone.
is dead.
Harsh.
It's the nuclear option.
Harsh pixies. Jeez, I thought you were there to help the plants.
Well, that's the thing. They are helping them in the long run.
By making sure, if they can't have a good enough caretaker, then they won't have anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, 3 double click.
Sure. A doomed spaceship.
I do love a doomed spaceship.
I actually like the idea of literally it's doomed to the point of the entire game takes place as the orbit of this ship is eroding and
in a decaying orbit, and they're
decaying, and it's falling into the atmosphere of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And you're maybe one of a few crew that's remaining, and you're obviously just having to first maybe figure out if you can save the ship, and then when you realize you can't, figuring out how to get out of this alive, how to save as many people as possible.
Set the self-destruct, which is an optional objective, but it has a difference in the ending because you don't want this planet that it's going to drop down onto is primitive, and you don't want them having
the technology.
You've got to be able to escape with your life. That's priority number one.
That's basically your main goal.
And the research. I think collecting the research and having the majority of that. I don't think you've got a time limit as such. I think it's...
No, I don't think you've got a time limit, but I like this idea of you can essentially finish the game by escaping alive.
Yes.
But not having solved those other things appropriately. You haven't managed to set the self-destruct, and you haven't managed to take the research with you.
Yeah. gives you
that's
basically gives you 3 different endings. No matter what, when you the last thing that actually and the thing that sets off the final part of the game is you escaping.
Yeah.
To keep it nice and simple.
Yeah. No, I like that.
So I like the idea of like having a what feels like a it's a race against the clock in the fact that
I think this
at
game
certain
needs
points there's only 7% of oxygen remaining, and it's gradually going down. The orbit will decay in.
I think when you look out the windows of this ship, as you see more and more of like the outside heating up as it goes through the atmosphere, and you actually start seeing like wind and stuff going past, or debris or whatever. Like it's literally starting to skim and get into contact with the atmosphere the later you go. I think this game should feel really tense the entire time. Basically,
it should, but when you realize, hey, you can sit there and do nothing for 4 hours.
Yeah,
and
of course,
it won't decay. It's basically
it's still a narrative that is only moved forward by your actions.
Yeah,
but
so if you manage to get the points of the game to the point where you can escape in 4 minutes, then that's how long the orbit took to decay, sort of thing. Like it's
I think you probably actually avoid using any sort of real time unit. You would say things like 7% of oxygen left, or we've descended this close to the planet, like there's not much time left. But you wouldn't use actual time because they can take as long as they need to solve each section.
Yeah.
So how much? Well, how does it start? How do you reckon it starts? Does this game wake up? Like, does this game start and you are already in this situation?
I like the idea that you wake up on the bridge and you've got a gash across your head.
Yeah.
And no one else is around.
Alarms are
going off.
Yep.
And maybe you were found right next to the captain's quarters or something like that. So you have a feeling that you might be to do with the captain.
So
no one else is there.
Oh, so you don't? Have you lost your memory?
I kind of like the idea that you have, but you kind of can piece together very quickly that the computer wants you to.
I like having doing a bit
research.
Of a fake out. I like doing a bit of a fake out actually, where you start and you start the game as if your character has completely lost their memory. But yeah, like the computer just immediately tells you who you are, what your job is, what you had for breakfast, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I remember. I was just
first mate Kevin
shaking.
McNally.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of him being a science officer or something, maybe, but like not even necessarily bridge crew. They were there to give a report to the first officer or something on the research that they've been doing of studying this primitive civilization on the planet that they're orbiting. Maybe the computer has lost some data. Maybe the computer can't tell you what's happened.
All I can tell you is that there is one escape pod left, but it is currently not functional. Blah, blah, blah.
And 7 crew members detected on board or something.
Yeah.
And I think the escape pod can hold enough people. Like, I think that's enough, or maybe it can hold 6 or something. But yeah, that you wake up and you're in the sort of the final stages of this disaster. Nobody had realized you were there. They're all busy doing other things, and then as you start to explore the ship, you find the other people who are left. And
do you think the bridge crew are all gone and disappeared from the ship?
I think the captain's dead. I think the first officer then is still on board.
So my question is, did the computer kill them?
Why? Why would they have?
Because
I mean, it's an interesting hook, but I'm just
trying to think whether this is just something that the computer's been given orders that, you know.
I don't know that you need a conspiracy in this. I kind of like it. I kind of like it being fairly straightforward in that way. Of
it hit a satellite. There you go.
Yeah, like I think. Yeah, I mean that's interesting because if it's a primitive civilization, where did that satellite come from?
Oh,
I mean, if you mean a man-made satellite,
as in, I'm thinking, you know, to an alien, we may be primitive, so you know, because we can't travel through space right now. We don't have the technology to do that. We can launch things into space, but that's it.
Right. Okay, I like the idea then that they are just at that early stage of space exploration or of space launching at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking 60s sort of thing. So it's not.
But I like that, you know, because it took, you know, obviously took. It takes a while for light to travel, you know, for whatever. So your team wasn't expecting there to be satellites orbiting this planet, and so they kind of didn't account for it or something because, you know, the data on exactly how advanced this civilization was a bit out of date, or it
may have been, you know, when you took off, you know, 3 light years ago, it might have been just fine, but they're just in their early stages of setting up all these satellites and stuff. And
yeah, well, that's it. It could be that whatever interstellar travel you have is relativistic or whatever, and when you set off, you had a certain amount of information, and when you got there,
that information is no longer
for
true.
them, hundreds of years have passed for this planet, and so yeah, it could even be like, oh, you come out of warp speed. We came out of warp speed or whatever, and literally intersected with a satellite. So like you could go like I like that idea of you find
the core of the computer and it's got a satellite sticking out of it.
Well, I'm thinking you go to like one of the data rooms or whatever, and there's literally, you know, the matter is intersected with the ship, this huge, you know, this satellite, like a large satellite, and that's obviously caused havoc and taken certain systems offline and caused this whole disaster.
Also, I don't want to tell you this now, but that little puddle on the ground, that's the captain. He was standing right there. He was getting his physical.
Well, the captain intersected with the satellite.
in so the medical lab.
Yeah, that's where it happened. And there's half, a chunk out of the captain with the other chunk literally...
They tried saving him.
Turned into antimatter from intersecting with matter in the same exact position.
They tried saving him, but the brainy part was too far gone.
Brainy part.
It was too far gone.
Do you mean the head?
Well,
yes, the brainy part.
As you know,
as medical officer, I must use the correct terminology.
The captain was a Glaucon, and as we all know, Glaucons have their hearts in their chests.
Their hearts in their chests. Yes, that's so unusual. And their brains in their
brain
butts.
is right next to it. I meant to say their brains are where their hearts are meant to be, and their heart is in their ass.
We all know that Glaucons are so empathetic because their brains and their hearts are directly connected. Are one and the same. Yes, their brain pumps blood and feelings through their body. The idea of a brain pumping thoughts around in the same way a heart does.
And blood is just electrical signals.
That's how they send keep things oxygenated through electrical stimulation through nerves.
But yes, and I digress. I kind of like the idea of bringing on like maybe a medical hologram, kind of like an homage to
like a Voyager thing
to Voyager, but it's a very, very mundane sort of very primitive hologram that
it's just a floating head, low poly,
and it's kind of like it's no better than like a Google.
It speaks
a
like
Google
Dr.
Doc.
Spatzo.
It's just a Google Doc.
It's
Or Google
holographic
MD.
WebMD.
I know. There's just something about it, them calling it, a Google Doc. Because
Google Doc.
Doc, now sponsored by Google.
They installed the wrong Google Doc. It was meant to be the super advanced medical, hologram with a whole dictionary of things, but instead it's just a spreadsheet system.
Well, a word system. It's a word processor.
It's a word processor.
Okay, so why is it possible to exit the game without getting all the research?
I mean, I think we just have some key points where you either have to make a decision about how to solve a puzzle. Maybe you can only get the research if you sacrifice someone or something like that.
There's 6 pieces of research and 7 crew members.
The research, the computers on this ship are very old, and the research the databanks take up a whole person amount of room. So if we're going to get them in the escape pod, then I
don't know.
I'm sorry, Tim, you can't come.
I don't know. There's something about magnetic storage media that you've got to get these floppy disks, and
it's cassette tapes like Commodore 64. You just got these stacks of fucking magnetic
audio
tape
logs
drives. Yeah, something like that. I think you just have it be a narrative choice, because I don't think just having whole sections of the game that you could just ignore is what you want.
No.
I think it's
essentially
going to get
sort of
a different ending.
Maybe kind of like in a lot of these games that you got the audio logs that are missable along the way. That's basically that's what the research is. It's that's your.
Well, I think
that's
maybe it's more of it's a story. It's a factor in the story. You've been doing this research. Although I guess if you just got here, it's not. Maybe it's from the research from the last planet or something. Or maybe we do it. Maybe we make it that you have been here for a while and you've been researching, and it's not the whole intersecting with a satellite as you come out of warp thing. But whatever, we figure that out. You've got vital research on board.
They've got primitive beaming technology, and they beamed it right into the path of your. Beamed it right into your ship, because that's.
I mean, that could actually. What could be an interesting thing there is maybe there is something going on where either somebody made a mistake or someone has purposefully been feeding this more primitive society technology. And so, yes, they literally have been experimenting with teleportation, and they teleported something directly into, intersecting your ship. Because then you could have some real cool things with, it is the medical officer or something who felt bad for these people and thought they deserved the technology. Mm-hmm. But, has realized, because they didn't earn it and learn all the steps along the way, they're misusing it now. And then inadvertently caused this whole disaster.
And what it all comes down to is they saw how they actually treated, the replicator technology, and they started charging all the people in the world to make food. And they didn't share out the replicator technology with everyone. It was just, now you just come to the supermarket and that's where you buy your food. And
it's basically made everything cheaper for the large corporations.
But they haven't reduced the prices.
They haven't passed that on to anyone. Yeah, I like that. And then actually what would be really interesting is, you have this misguided medical officer who has done this. But the choice you end up making is, do you take the research that's vital for, that you need to send this back to your, to your civilization so that they know, it's more evidence, it's more reason not to do this ever again. But you can only, your choice is do that or save the medical officer, who caused it all in the first place. Even if it was, basically that they had good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a fun little dilemma to put the player through.
The final thing is just that the medical officer is there, but I had good intentions. And he closes the thing and locks it and goes, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Eject." And
yeah. The escape pod goes off and you just see the
medical officer
like burning up in the atmosphere.
Their faces all melting off, and
it's the goriest, like, most detailed shot of the entire game.
It's basically that scene from Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the guy's face is melting, except it's like as if it was actually real, and like the muscle structure's getting burnt to a crisp, and there's kind of like
I'm sure we can do some great like
stage where he's very Freddy Krueger like, and then it goes further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll just make everyone sick at the final moments of the game.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to do one more.
Let's do one more. Have to be a little bit quick, maybe, but we'll see how into it we get.
The location. Attic.
Ooh, an attic.
Yes. I like me likey an attic. You can do a lot with an attic.
Yeah, so I mean the obvious way to go is some sort of ghost sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we can do that if we want, but I would like to have a think about the less obvious things.
I like the idea of kids playing hide and seek.
Yeah, I was thinking kids as well. Kids in an attic.
I mean, kids in an attic screams very much Goonies to me, and it's just going, Goonies, Goonies, Goonies,
yeah,
Goonies.
It gave me a Never-Ending Story kind of vibe as well.
Yeah,
where he's
a bit
up
of
in the
Never-Ending
attic,
Story,
you know.
but it also gave me a vibe of what we have done before, which is like played with finding letters in an attic that came from like a war, and that war ended up being like an alien invasion and not what everyone thought it was.
Right.
But no, I like the idea of a dusty attic and a kid hiding up there and, you know, saying, "I've found the perfect hiding spot." But while they're up there, they find something. Like, I don't know. I like the idea of finding like an old chest or finding
an old gramophone.
Yeah, not knowing what the fuck it is.
Yeah. And then like finding something on the records that's unusual.
Finding this small little handle, and it's got like something at the side, and there's like a little hole, and they can put it into, and it turns, and it's kind of like a Hills hoist crank.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go there.
Crank technology. What could we do with crank technology?
Well, I feel like people used to crank things a lot. Or wind things.
Cars.
You know, their cars, their gramophones, their Hills hoist. I think a modern kid wouldn't understand crank technology.
No.
So it's a bit unusual to them.
Whether it's a gramophone or whether it's an old mirror.
Okay.
I kind of like the idea of playing with a mystical world and seeing things that shouldn't be in the mirror. Kind of like in that weird, like, magical property by that, you know, turfy lady. Yeah. There's like this mirror of desire sort of thing that people can see what happens in the future. I don't mind that idea, and I don't think that's actually a copyrighted thing that by anyone.
I'm sure we're going to have a mirror that shows odd things.
Yes.
I guess I just for the story, is it a portal to another place? Is it showing them something about themselves? Is it showing them the future or the past or a different story or a different person? Does their reflection jump out of it, and
what if
they make friends with it?
They look in the mirror and they don't see anything reflecting back. But their sibling comes up and they see, like, They just see
They
themselves.
see themselves.
And
Okay.
that's kind of like, I don't know, has something actually happened to this kid? And it's sort of like a mystery sort of thing.
Are they like straddled between... Is the world on the other side of the mirror like a dimension where they didn't survive an accident as a kid or something? Like they died when they were younger?
I like that.
That's interesting. I'm picturing this because I was just thinking like, okay, how would we show this?
I mean, because a mirror is really a portal to another world when you're talking about computer. Within the computer, like, doing a mirror is one of the hardest things that you can actually do. So...
I like this almost as a, like, PS1 style 3D...
I'm
graphics, like,
I'm hearing my mind voice going, and all the polygons are kind of moving around, but it's got that sort of blockiness to the people looking in the mirror and going, I can't see anything. Like,
well, I think just a stylized low poly 3D with that sort of thing would be cool. Where
Alone in the Dark,
they're almost expression
low polyness.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
without the tank controls.
No, God, no, no. I think modern, just from the style point of view, could be kind of interesting. I just, for whatever reason, I had that in my head.
So, is this a third-person adventure game?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I'm picturing puzzles being things like, because you're there with your sibling, and maybe they're twins. Maybe it's like fraternal twins, boy-girl twins.
Love it.
And they start going and, like, getting photos of themselves together and holding them up to the mirror and seeing differences in them.
Mm. And then they hold up one of their family with their grandfather, and and the grandfather isn't in there. Like, and
yeah, like it starts giving them. You start finding clues then
of who to talk to next.
What happened? Yeah.
And if you talk to your grandfather, he says that this is his mirror, and there's a reason why it's up in the attic, and you shouldn't go snooping around in. Well,
I feel like I kind of like the idea that nobody else actually knows about it. I think the fun comes from the investigation of this and figuring these things out. But that's a clue essentially that, Grandpa's missing from this too. You do go and talk to Grandpa, and he tells a story about when he took you kids fishing when you were like too young, like you were like 3 years old or something, and
you went
little
missing.
Johnny fell off the boat, and Grandpa went in to save him and narrowly avoided getting hit by the like blades of the motorboat or something. Like something happened.
So
like there was some moment where he survived and saved Johnny, but obviously in this mirror universe, they were both killed. I mean, maybe revealing that immediately is too much, or maybe that just kicks off like, oh, well, what else is like? Maybe they have to do something. Maybe they have to find out what else is different from this place to. Yeah, I don't know.
There's just something about someone mentions, instead of this being a mirror, they call it a looking glass, and it kind of gives you the idea that there's actually a world through the looking glass that, potentially, it's showing you what happens in this other world, which is why it's different to all the other mirrors around. Like, this one's actually, potentially got some way of actually traveling into the other world.
Right, and changing things.
Or not necessarily changing things, but investigating from that side and seeing what happens. But
right.
The problem is, if someone goes through that has, like, your sister goes through, or brother, I don't know, whichever one you decide.
Whichever way we go with it.
Yep. Yeah. And their mirror person comes out on the other side.
Right. Well, yeah, they would, I guess.
And so now they kind of have a little bit more control. Like, all of a sudden, you know, your brother or sister stops actually responding to what you want them to, you know, to anything on this side, because there's only people on the outside who have full control. Because whoever's on the inside of this...
Like, are you saying that they don't respond to you as a player?
Oh, yeah, as in now they're not the ones in control of the body. Like, the mirror person actually is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's very interesting to bring out that mirror person, and then...
They now have control over the body, and when you actually show up again...
Well, I think it's more just... I think it just can further the story along quite well if those... Like, it's not about switching into that body, it's that literally those two people have switched places between these universes. Mm-hmm. Because, like, obviously for your sibling to see themselves in the mirror... On the other side, that the sibling in that world had to be there for some reason. And so now you can talk to them and find out why they're there. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, I went up to the attic and went to this mirror and saw my dead brother, you know, all grown up. And so I've been, you know, bringing photos up here. Like, they're doing the exact opposite of you, but for the different reasons. But
I heard a bang up here, and I then found this mirror, and, like... I looked in and I saw your face, and...
Yeah, exactly. But then that can give you, you know, some additional clues, and then maybe you... Like, because then if you go into the mirror, there's obviously not another one of you to come out the other side, and so it's... but you can explore and talk to people on that side, perhaps.
But you got to be very careful, because if they see you and they realise that you're actually the brother, they try to keep you here on this side. And
yeah, I mean, that could be part of the story. Maybe that's a big part of it. Maybe it's making the decision of, you know, trying to go back into your own world, but the people here you've been lost from for, you know, a decade.
So chapter 1, they smash the mirror. They smash the looking glass.
You go through it and they smash it to keep you on that side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so chapter 2, like many years later, like when we get more money for it, is you piecing it back together and, you know, sort of researching who created this. And you come across a man, Mr. Lewis Carroll, who
Yeah, no, I like that idea, though, of having to piece it back together, or at least find another mirror into that same universe or something. You know, are you there with the sibling from your dimension, or...
It depends. I can see it both ways, but I do like the idea that you yourself can cross over, because there's nothing stopping you in the mirror when you try to push through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fact that both of you try to push through gives something to stop, but because there's nothing to stop you, because you're on
there's no dead, you on the other side,
you can pass through, and
that's kind of cool.
It's actually the same with all mirrors. It's just that for some reason in this particular instance, maybe this particular dimension, because I think that each mirror is a dimension, maybe, which is actually kind of cool. Again, like, it's an infinite dimension sort of thing. And then you're just quantum leaping all the way through.
I do like the idea of each mirror appears into a different dimension, but the vast, vast, vast majority of them, the thing that is different in that dimension will never be reflected in that mirror, just because of the minuscule possibilities of, you know, that coincidence happening. Basically, that the mirror that sees into a particular dimension would be different enough, like the things on the outside would be different enough. It just so happens that, and yeah, maybe someone sorted it out, maybe there is a thing of, like, someone figured this out and specifically found a way to essentially bring mirrors closer to where the discrepancy is between their dimensions so that they could study it or something like that. You could go into some kind of deep deep lore there around, people figuring that out or something.
I mean, I'm just super proud that I came up with a plausible explanation as to why you can travel through this mirror just off the top of my head, that there's nothing stopping you when you touch the mirror, because there's nothing there to stop you.
Yeah.
So,
none of us can go through mirrors if the person on the other side is pushing back with the exact same force.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Equal and opposite reaction. That's what
Yeah, exactly. Newton taught us that, right?
It's like what Newton's Which law of Newton's is
One
it?
of the laws.
One of the laws. Anyway, I think that's all we've got time for tonight.
It is. So thank you for joining us this week on Bitstorm. If you'd like to listen to any of our previous episodes,
we've got previous episodes.
Have some. This is not the first episode of Bitstorm.
I thought it was. Oh, no, we did one last week as well.
We did one last week,
There's
and
at least
the week
2
before, and about 270 odd weeks before
That's right. Yeah. Mirror Me did the rest of them. Did I say that out loud?
All right, well, putting that aside for a second, we'll come back to that. Go to podchaser.com/bitstorm. That's where the episodes are. And also leave us a review. Tell us what you thought of the episode.
Do you like the music that we play at the start and end? That song is called Mantifiance, off of the album Containment Failure by the band Kuradust. It's a free album. You can download it, and it's got us on it. It's really kind of cool.
So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
Well, no, you just told me that you're not.
No, I'm the mirror version of Trevor Scott. You just told me that
you're... Yeah, and I think we're going to have to do something about this.
My name is actually Robert.
Is it Robert Tosk? No, Tox. Robert Tox.
Yep.
Well, Robert, you got some explaining to do.